No one on that hillside expected to find a heartbeat. A plane has just been ripped apart at 33,000 feet. Wreckage is scattered across a frozen forest. Every single person on board should be dead. But deep inside a crushed chunk of the tail, a rescuer hears something that stops him cold. A breath. A low moan. He pulls back the twisted metal and finds a 22-year-old flight attendant, still strapped to her seat, barely alive. She has just fallen from the sky, 10 kilometers straight down. No parachute, no engine, no wing, just a broken piece of a plane, and her own body. Her name is Vesna Vulovic. What you're about to hear is not just how she survived a fall. That should have killed her instantly. It's what that fall did to her mind, her body, and her entire life afterwards. Because there's a part of this story that almost nobody talks about. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why surviving was only the beginning of her struggle. Before all of this, Vesna Vulovic is a 21-year-old from Belgrade with a simple dream: see the world. In 1971, she gets her chance. A job as a flight attendant with Yugoslav Airlines. Travel new cities, a uniform with wings on it. For a girl who'd barely left her own country, it feels like freedom. She has no idea that a tiny clerical error is about to put her on the wrong flight. Here's what happens. Another crew member has a name almost identical to hers. A scheduler mixes them up. Vesna gets assigned to a flight she was never supposed to be on. She doesn't question it. She just shows up, puts on her uniform, boards the plane. Think about that for a second. One misspelled name on a piece of paper. That's the difference between a normal Tuesday and the day your life splits in half. January 26, 1972. Jot Flight 367. Copenhagen to Zagreb. 28 passengers, 7 crew. A cold European afternoon. The plane climbs, levels off. Nothing unusual. In the back of the cabin, Vesna is smiling, pushing a drinks trolley between the seats. That trolley is the last thing she will ever remember about her old life. Because what happens next takes less than 4 seconds. 4:01 p.m. A bomb, hidden somewhere in the luggage hold, detonates. The plane is at 33,000 feet. That's higher than Mount Everest. The air outside is -60 degrees. In less than a second, the pressurized cabin tears open. Imagine the sound. Not a bang you hear in movies. A sound so loud your eardrums shut down. Then a roar of wind, louder than anything you've ever experienced. The metal skin of the fuselage peels apart. The plane splits into sections. Seats, luggage, and human bodies are ripped out into open sky. 6 miles below, villagers look up. They see a flash. Then they watch pieces of an airplane fall through the clouds like burning confetti. At this altitude, an unprotected human body goes unconscious. In about 15 seconds, death from impact with the ground comes roughly 2.5 minutes later. There is no known survival protocol for this. No training. No procedure. By every law of physics, every person on Flight 367 is already dead. They just haven't hit the ground yet. But somewhere inside that falling wreckage, one set of lungs is still breathing. And here is where the physics gets strange. Vesna remembers none of this. Her mind records nothing between the drinks trolley and the hospital bed. So what we know about the next 2.5 minutes comes from wreckage analysis, physics, and a few educated guesses. Here is the most likely sequence. When the bomb goes off, Vesna is standing near the rear galley, the back of the plane, a section of fuselage, some seats, the galley, and the food trolley, tiers away from the rest of the aircraft. as one large jagged chunk. The blast throws Vesna backward. Collapsing walls in the heavy trolley slam around her body, pinning her into a pocket of wreckage. This is brutal, but it might save her life, because that cocoon of metal, plastic, and aluminum does three things. First, it shields her from the full force of the 500-mile-per-hour airstream outside. Without that shell, the wind alone would tear the clothes off her body and freeze her blood in seconds. Second, being jammed in place means she isn't thrown out into open air. She doesn't tumble freely. Her body stays contained. Third, the whole tail section doesn't fall straight down. It tumbles, it spins, it catches air resistance. This slows it. Not enough to make it safe, but enough to make it survivable. Maybe. Now picture the ground rushing up below. And this is where Vesna gets the second unearned gift of the day. The tail section doesn't hit a runway. It doesn't hit concrete or rock or frozen lake. It hits a steep forested hillside, buried under heavy snow. Witnesses later say they watch one larger piece of debris crash into the tree line. It doesn't stop on impact. It rips through the canopy. Every branch it hits absorbs a little energy. Every trunk it snaps steals a little more speed. It's like crashing through 100 red small obstacles instead of one massive wall. Finally, what's left of the tail section slams into the snowy slope and slides. The snow and the angle of the hill spread the final impact across a longer distance and a longer time. Inside that crushed metal, Vesna's body is shattered. Skull fractured, spine broken, legs crushed. But her heart is still beating. And 800 meters down the hill, someone is about to hear her. But before we get to the man who finds her, here's something you need to keep in the back of your mind. Years later, some investigators will argue that this plane might not have broken apart at 33,000 feet at all. That the real altitude could have been much lower. That the story you've just heard might not be exactly what happened. Remember that, we'll come back to it. In the village below, people hear the explosion. They step outside. They see wreckage falling from the sky. Several men start climbing the hill. One of them is Bruno Honk. Bruno is not a young man, but he knows trauma. He served as a medic in World War II. He has seen what happens when metal meets human flesh at speed. He is climbing that hill, expecting one thing only: bodies, wreckage, silence. That's what plane crashes give you. Not survivors, not hope, just the job of recovering the dead. He reaches the debris field. Twisted aluminum, shredded seat cushions, luggage ripped open, clothes scattered in the snow. The smell of jet fuel and something worse. And then he stops. A sound. Faint. Almost nothing. Not the wind. Not the ticking of cooling metal. A breath. Then a low, broken moan. He follows it. Steps through the snow. Reaches a crushed section of the tail. He pulls back a piece of wreckage. And there she is. A young woman. Early 20s. Dark hair matted with blood. Still wearing the torn remains of a flight attendant's uniform. Still strapped to part of a seat. Wedged between the galley wall and the food trolley. Unconscious. Broken. But breathing. Bruno doesn't hesitate. He clears her airway. He stabilizes her head. He talks to her, even though she can't hear him. Because that's what medics do. You talk, you stay, you don't leave. He stays with her, in the freezing snow, until the ambulance arrives. When they finally carry her out, the other rescuers look at Bruno like he's just witnessed something impossible. Because he has. All 28 passengers are dead. All 6 other crew members are dead. Vesna Vulovic, The girl, who wasn't even supposed to be on this flight, is the only human being still alive. And at this exact moment, no one, not Bruno, not the doctors, not her family, knows if she'll survive the night. She is rushed to a local hospital, then airlifted to a larger facility in Prague. The doctors look at her chart and look at each other. Fractured skull, 3 broken vertebrae, including one that's crushed, both legs broken, pelvis fractured, ribs cracked, internal bleeding, brain swelling. She is 22 years old, and her body looks like it was dropped from the sky. Because it was. They put her in a medically induced coma. Days pass. Her parents sit beside the bed. Doctors give them careful words, the kind that mean, we don't know if she'll wake up. Then, on one unremarkable morning, her eyes open. She looks at her parents. She sees them crying. She has no idea why. Vesna doesn't know she's been in a plane crash. She doesn't know she fell from the sky. She doesn't know that 34 people are dead. And she's the only one who isn't. Her brain has done what brains do in extreme trauma. It hit delete. Her last memory, pushing a drinks trolley down the aisle of a plane. Her first new memory, a hospital room in Prague. Her mother's face, the smell of antiseptic, pain everywhere. Between those 2 moments, the trolley and the hospital, there is nothing, just white space. She will never get those memories back. And in some ways, that blank space might be the only mercy she's ever given. Because what comes next is not mercy at all. Her legs don't work. Not weak, not stiff. They don't respond. Doctors tell her carefully, the damage to her spine is severe. There is a chance, a real one, that she may spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. So picture this. You're 22. You've survived something no one in human history has survived before. The whole world is calling you a miracle. And your biggest challenge right now is trying to sit on the edge of a bed without blacking out from pain. That's where Vesna's second life begins. Not with applause, not with headlines, with a physical therapist holding her upright while she tries not to scream. For months the cycle repeats. Surgery, rest, surgery again. Painkillers that make the world blurry. Exercises that make her cry. Her therapist will later say, she is the most stubborn patient they've ever had. She jokes with nurses. She flirts with the doctors. She refuses, absolutely refuses, to believe that she won't walk. But in the quiet moments, when the room empties, something darker sits with her. The fear of flying that she can't explain, because she can't remember the crash. Nightmares about falling, even though her conscious mind has no memory of a fall. And the question that never fully goes away. Why me? Why am I alive when 34 other people aren't? That question doesn't have an answer. It never will. But 16 months after falling from the sky, Vesna Vulovic stands up from her wheelchair. For the last time, she takes a step, then another, then another. And on the day she leaves the hospital, she doesn't leave in a wheelchair. She walks out, slowly, with a limp she'll carry for life, with pain that will never fully stop, but on her own 2 feet. The doctors who said she might never walk stand in the hallway and watch her go, while Vesna is still learning to stand. The outside world has already decided what she is. A miracle, a symbol, a headline. The stewardess who fell from the sky. Guinness World Records contacts her. They want to list her as the holder of the highest fall survived without a parachute. She doesn't ask for the record. She doesn't campaign for it. It just lands on her. Like everything else. Back in Yugoslavia, the government gives her medals. TV stations want interviews. Newspapers print her face over and over. Her airline jet offers her a job again. Not in the sky, on the ground. A desk and office, Belgrade. She takes it. She never flies as cabin crew again. To the world, she is the woman who cheated death. To herself, she is a 23-year-old with a permanent limp, chronic pain, and a hole in her memory, where the worst day of her life should be. In interview, she says the same things. She remembers nothing. She credits the trees, the snow, and the people who saved her. She does not call herself a hero. She calls herself lucky. But here's the thing about luck. It doesn't fix your spine. It doesn't stop the nightmares. And it doesn't answer the question that follows you into every quiet room. Now, remember what I told you to keep in the back of your mind. It's time to talk about it. For decades, the official story stands. A bomb detonates at 33,000 feet. The plane breaks apart. Vesna falls inside a piece of the tail and somehow survives. But not everyone believes that. In the years after the crash, some journalists and aviation researchers start pulling at the threads. They go back to radar records. They re-interview witnesses. They study the wreckage pattern. And questions start to surface. Did the plane really break apart at 33,000 feet? Or could it have been much lower? Was the breakup caused by a bomb? Or could something else have happened? Were the original reports recorded accurately in the chaos of that day? Or were some details assumed, repeated, and then accepted as fact? One theory suggests the aircraft might have been at a much lower altitude when it came apart. If true, the fall distance would be dramatically shorter. Still deadly, still extraordinary. But not 33,000 feet. For a time, even Guinness World Records takes another look at her entry. After reviewing the evidence, they decide to keep it. But the debate doesn't disappear. Even today, aviation specialists disagree on the exact altitude, the exact sequence, and the exact cause. So what do we actually know for certain? A passenger jet breaks apart in the air. Vesna is found alive barely in the wreckage on the ground. Her injuries are consistent with a catastrophic fall and impact, and she recovers well enough to live for another 44 years. Whether it's exactly 33,000 feet or something significantly less, the odds of surviving what she went through are still almost zero. She lives in that razor-thin space between impossible and somehow it happened. And honestly, that might be more interesting than a clean, simple answer, because real survival stories are almost never clean or simple. After the cameras go away, Vesna does something radical. She tries to be normal. She goes to work at the airline office. She drinks coffee with colleagues. She answers the phone. She takes the bus home. When journalists call, and they always call, she gives them a few minutes. She answers the same questions. She is patient, but she always steers the conversation away from herself and toward the people who didn't come home. The 28 passengers, the 6 crew members, the families who buried someone that week. She doesn't want to be the woman who survived. She wants people to remember that a bomb killed 34 people on a commercial flight. That violence in the sky destroys real lives on the ground. She lives modestly. She never marries. Friends remember her as warm and funny, but often very quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from carrying something no one else can fully understand. On December 23, 2016, in her apartment in Belgrade, Vesna Vulovic dies. She is 66 years old. She has outlived every other person on Flight 367 by 44 years. So what does her story actually mean? Think about the chain one more time. A clerical error puts her on the flight. She's standing in exactly the right spot when the bomb goes off. The tail section breaks away as a rough cocoon around her. A food trolley pins her in place. The wreckage hits trees and snow on a hillside, not flat ground. A former combat medic lives in the nearest village. Hears her breathing, reaches her first, and keeps her alive until the ambulance comes. Remove any single link in that chain, and this video doesn't exist. You never hear her name. She's just another line in a crash report. And even after all of that luck, survival isn't a single moment. It's 16 months of learning to walk. It's decades of pain. It's a lifetime of being the miracle woman. When you just want to be a person. Vesna never calls herself a superhero. She's someone who fell inside a broken plane, woke up in a hospital, and then had to do exactly what the rest of us do. Go to work, buy groceries, grow older, try to find meaning in whatever time you've been given. The only difference is, she knew with absolute certainty that her time was borrowed. So here's the question I want to leave you with. If you found out tomorrow that every day from here on was an extra day you were never supposed to have, what would you change? Think about that. If this story stayed with you, hit like. It takes 1 second, and it helps more people find this channel. And if you want more true survival stories, subscribe. The next one might be even harder to believe.